Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your trusted daily companion for sharp, structured and UPSC focused current affairs. It's May 8, 2025 and today's edition brings critical developments in security and diplomacy into focus in our in-depth analysis articles. Firstly, we'll be breaking down Operation Sindoor, a significant military operation by India. Next, we are going to explore the India-US energy future, charting the path of cooperation on clean energy, technology and strategic partnerships. And in our simplified section, curated for your upcoming prelims 2025 examination, we cover new skilling initiatives, satellite internet services, river cleanup proposals, artificial rain pilot projects in Delhi, and finally, a vibrant cultural celebration of Thrissur Pooram. So let's get started. Hello everyone, welcome back again to another interesting and very informative episode of The Analyst, where we will be firstly looking into the most significant issue in the news, that is concerning our own Operation Sindoor. As you know guys, after the fallout of the Pahalgam attack that took place almost 2 weeks ago, the Indian Army, the Indian Armed Forces, the Indian government pledged a reply that will befitting the terrorist ideologies emanating from Pakistan. Over a period of time, they have conducted so many operations into the Pakistani regions, and obviously in all of the operations we can actually claim that India have had the upper hand over the years. The same can be told for this particular Operation Sindoor, which is a very symbolic one, because as so far we can understand, the various operations were given various fictitious names, sometimes names to strike psychological fear into our enemies. But this time, the name Sindoor has been specifically dedicated to the various women who lost their husbands, who lost their closed ones in this particular Pahalgam terrorist attacks. And this is why the Indian Army, through its Twitter post, as you can see, has posted that justice is served, Jai Hind. And that is exactly what we are going to understand today through this article, because from the perspective of prelims, we need to look into the various current events of national and international importance, where in the prelims we have had questions on the past military operations. And in 2024 also there was one particular question regarding the same. Now, in this entire issue, we are going to analyze the various mains topics too. In GS2, we have the topic of India and its neighborhood relations, and we need to talk about how this is impacting our relations with Pakistan. Next, in GS3, we are going to understand the role of internal security here, wherein we have to look into what is the role of external states such as Pakistan by causing terrorism or causing various troubling situations in the country. Finally, in GS4, we need to look into the various ethical issues and international relations and funding, and also the fallout of this particular initiative and its ethical dimensions too. So let us start with Operation Sindoor. As you know, guys, all of you know about the details. It has been in the news and it has been in the public discourse for almost 2 weeks, and also the various details have been already there everywhere. Now, from the perspective of our UPSC examination, we need to understand how this particular operation took place, and obviously how this operation is typically extremely different from the previous operations we have conducted so far. Now, when we talk about Operation Sindoor, I already explained that it is a symbolical name which has been given by the inclusion of the word Sindoor here. And here the main objective was to strike against terrorist infrastructure, as we can see across the LOC, beyond the LOC, beyond the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and also inside Pakistan regions too. And all of these sites, as you can see on this map, are terrorist bedlams. For example, say this Bahawalpur, right, the Markaz Taiba in Muridke, or various other places here are terrorist hotbeds, supplying resources to LET and various other terrorist organizations. And that is what actually we have to keep in mind, that India has struck against these bases, and they have typically struck at the various ammunition center, at the various homes of their terrorists, also the associated allies of the terrorists across these regions. And this particular mission did not only involve missiles, but it was a coordinated effort when we talk about air, naval and also land-based precision strikes for the first time in the country. Because so far in various previous operations where we have seen, it was only limited to maybe air strike or naval strike and so on. But here we have had a coordinated approach, and let me tell you, so far we do not even know 5 to 10% of what exactly happened. We only know what has been told to us by the government, what has been reported by the media, but as of now the entire details as to how, even when we talk about the Navy or say the role of the naval forces here, we can only wonder as to what kind of surveillance they conducted or how we actually did involve the Navy here. So that is why it is my own observation that we do not even know 5 to 10% of exactly what happened yesterday. And exactly what we have to also appreciate in this matter is how different Operation Sindoor was from the previous operations, for example, from 2016 to 19. When we talk about the scope here, the previous operations focused on one single location, for example, the Balakot strike and so on. But here, in this particular operation, 9 sites were targeted across Pakistan and also Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Also, when we talk about the technology which has been involved in previous operations, we have seen the usage of drones and various other equipments, but for the very first time we have used AI driven models. We have had AI driven intelligence sources. Also, when we talk about the strikes, we used missiles, and I will be going to explain you the very sophisticated technologies involved. But we also used drones, we used our own fighter jets including Rafale, and also according to various reports we have also used sensitive radar systems. So this is a comprehensive kind of an attack that we have seen for the very first time in the country. The main objective here was actually degrading terrorist logistics and their infrastructure and dismantling the leadership. And finally, when we talk about the previous missions, the Indian government, it has been seen that it avoided a large-scale risky project. But here, this is a large-scale operation, and also India has struck deep inside Pakistan. So this is where we have to now appreciate what were the various technologies or the weapons that we have used in this particular attack. Now, to summarize, we have used hammer, meteor, scalp, BrahMos, this kind of precision weapons that we have used. Also, we have used platforms or fighter jets to transport these weapons to POK and Pakistan, and we have used the Indian Air Force Rafales to carry the scalp and Hamar weapons. Also, we have used our Sukhoi 30 MKIs, and here we have used it for our air cover to give cover to the Rafales, and also conducting electronic warfare by causing jamming into the Pakistani radar system. And in this matter, we have also conducted naval surveillance by actually conducting the surveillance over the past 2 weeks and to identify those camps here. Now, for the purpose of the examination, it is extremely important for us to understand what were these weapons and some of the important details. Now, when we consider hammer, right, this stands for highly agile and maneuverable munition extended range. This is an air to ground precision guided weapon system that can be fitted with our Rafales, and that can have a range up to 70 km, and this can be fitted to various bombs and also various guided systems here. And what we have done is here, we have actually transported this weapon to the Pakistani terrorist hubs, and we have actually carried out these precision strikes in this medium range operation right now. And according to the Safran groups, which is actually the main manufacturing group of this Hamar weapon, this system is entirely autonomous and insensitive to jamming. So even if Pakistani operators, they are trying to jam this weapon system, they won't be able to do so. And the biggest benefit is that this can be launched from a low altitude over even a rough terrain. If you can only imagine this particular terrain, you will find that we have the Himalayan mountains here, and the terrain is extremely rough. And obviously, if you fly a missile system or weapon system at high altitudes, the radar system will be detecting it, and that is why you actually need to transport it at a very low altitude so that it can actually traverse along the terrain and then it can strike it. Next, we have the Meteor, which is a new generation weapon system, which is actually a beyond visual range air-to-air missile, and that is again fitted with our Rafale, which has been extremely crucial in giving solid deterrence. And here, when we talk about its manufacture, it is manufactured by MBDA, and it is using a solid fuel ramjet motor, which is giving its extremely amount of powerful thrust to drive into the target. And here it can actually have a no escape zone for the target regions, because it is an extremely dangerous system. Next, we have also used the Scalp, which is a very precise amount of air launch cruise missile, and here this is a very special weapon because it is having stealth feature. That means if you launch it, it is extremely difficult for it, for the enemy forces to trace it, because it can deliver long range deep strikes. And here, when we talk about this particular system and its features, it can be operated at night and in all weather conditions, right? And also the same manufacturer here is telling that it is having a range of 450 kilometers, so we can actually launch it from our Ambala Air Force, a little beyond our Ambala Air Force, into our territorial domestic region itself. And the Scalp missile can actually traverse the entire region undetected. And the most important feature is here, it can use our inertial navigation system and also the GPS system, so it can actually be a guided missile to strike into the hearts of the terrorist hubs. Next, we have used BrahMos missile. BrahMos, we all know, which is actually a joint collaboration of our DRDO and Russia's defense manufacturing capabilities. So this is where we have to understand that the BrahMos missile can actually travel at Mach 3, almost at Mach 3 speeds, and it is based on the principle of fire and forget. That means if I fire the BrahMos missile, it is extremely difficult for me to later on to control it. And that is where the Indian armed forces have precisely identified the targets, and at a cruising altitude of 15 kilometer and terminal altitude as well as 10 meter, we have struck Pakistan with this. And also in recent times, we have increased the capabilities of BrahMos and also kind of doubled its ranges. That is why we have used it, and we have used it quite successfully. And at the end, we have also used something which we know as loitering munitions. Now these are actually used for spying purposes. That means if I want to identify some terrorist base camps, I would firstly want to take my time to surveil the entire locality. And this is where this particular loitering munitions come into picture, because this can carry out surveillance, this can have identification of targets, and also carry out precision strikes. In some cases, they can also transform into kamikaze drones, right? We have also used this kind of drones where we can use this drone to directly have some surveillance capabilities and directly hit a particular base using this particular drone. So that is where we have to understand how we have used these technologies. Now, we also need, from a perspective of the examination, to understand what were various other key military operations against Pakistan. Now these are factual details, you just need to know this for your examination. And here, when I talk about the chronological order of the missions, the very first we have in the 1965 war against Pakistan, where we have had Operation Riddle, where the main goal was to counter Pakistan's Operation Gibraltar. Now this Gibraltar was actually the main operation that Pakistan conducted against Jammu and Kashmir, because they wanted to infiltrate that, and that is why we actually tried to stop it. And India attacked Lahore and Kasur in September 1965, and the main outcome was the Tashkent Agreement in this particular matter. So please do remember for your examination. In the comments, you let me know what the Tashkent Agreement was all about. Next, also under the same war, we have had Operation Ablaze, which was actually a preemptive mobilization before the 1965 war, and later the war took place. The next operation was Cactus Lily, where Indian Air Force airlifted the troops to Dhaka, and it also bypassed Pakistani troops or defenses, and as a result of which we also have had Bangladesh its own independence. In the next one, we also have an Operation Trident and Python. Python was actually carried by the Navy here, where the main target was to attack strategic forces and ports in Pakistan. And here, we also use for the very first time anti-ship missile in the region. So that is why this mission is extremely important. In the next one, we conducted Operation Meghdoot in 1984, where the main purpose of India was to reclaim our Siachen glacier, because prior to this period it was seen that Pakistan was actually using this Siachen glacier to carry out various mountaineering expeditions by various foreign nationals and so on. So Pakistan conducting this kind of expeditions, it kind of conveyed to India that it had full control over the Siachen glacier, but it was actually not. That is why we carried out Operation Meghdoot. We took back our Siachen glacier. Till this date, we still control the glacier. In the next one, in 1999, the Kargil War, we have had Operations Vijay and Safed Saga. Operation Vijay was actually carried by the army here. We try to recapture the Tiger Peak and Tiger Hills from Pakistan, and here a very key figure here is Captain Vikram Batra, who actually, after having control of a particular point in this particular region of Kargil, he commented that ye dil mange more, right? Next, we have had Operation Safed Sagar by the Indian Air Force, where this was actually the very first high altitude airstrike since 1971, and actually we used Mirage 2000s for this precision bombing. Now cut to present times right now. In 2016, we know that we carried out the 2016 surgical strikes, where the particular name of this operation was not given by the government, but here the main trigger was the Uri attack, where 19 of our soldiers died. And here the main action that we actually took was crossing the LOC and destroy the terror launch pads. And in the next one, in 2019, we have at Operation Bandar, which is actually an form of the Balakot airstrike, where the main trigger was here right now, the Pulwama attack, which was taken place in 2019, Valentine's Day, right? And in this particular operation, we actually tried to bomb Jaish-e-Mohammed camp in Balakot, and this was actually the first airstrike inside Pakistan since 1971. So these are the various informations that you have to keep in mind for your prelims examination, and also maybe there can be some potential questions in the mains regarding this. Now, when I talk about linking this topic with the rest of the GS syllabus, firstly, when I talk about GS2, where we have India and its neighborhood, now we need to understand the various deteriorating dynamics between India and Pakistan in recent times. Firstly, when I talk about the various peace efforts, we have had various peace efforts with our close friend Pakistan, but over a period of time, we have only known about the real intent, the real extent of Pakistan. In the recent times also, their own army general right now, they have lamented about the two-nation theory. They have commented against some communities in India, and they have also talked about how various communities in Pakistan cannot coexist together. And we have had this kind of rhetoric in Pakistan going on and on and on. Being a military country, a pseudo-democracy in its own terms, in its own day, Pakistan never fails to appreciate the true aspect of cooperation, where very early signs of cooperation were seen in the Shimla Agreement, when we have had proper ceasefire rules and regulations framed. We also tried to formalize the LOC. Also later, after the Kargil War, in the Lahore Declaration, we tried to also have had some establishments for greater peace between the two nations. But again, the 26/11 attacks, but again, the various terrorist attacks that have been seen in the country over a period of time. So this means that the past peace efforts do not mean anything to Pakistan. So that is where, in the comments also, you let me know some of the other peace operations that were taking place between the two nations, but only two failures. Next, when we talk about our own doctrine against Pakistan, we do not ever appreciate war with any country. We are a country where Gandhiji actually belonged to, where we believe in peace, where we believe in universal brotherhood, where we believe in the coexistence of all religions, of all community, of all race, of all individuals. That is why we also believe in the principle Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that is where we understand that we do not want any full-fledged conflict with any other nation. But when we concerns Pakistan, we have actually seen a shift from cold start doctrine to preemptive strikes. This means that this cold start doctrine is generally referring that we will be only limited to some specific regions of Pakistan when we talk about the strikes and various operations without launching a full-fledged war. But here right now we are actually transforming to preemptive strikes, strikes that can actually help India prevent terrorist various hubs and various locations in Pakistan. Next, when we talk also about the diplomatic isolation of Pakistan, India has a very big role in this particular matter, because we do not want to go to any kind of wars which Pakistan will eventually lose, and obviously we do not want our resources to be wasted on a wasted country like Pakistan. So the best way for us is actually to isolate Pakistan on an international level, and that can be actually be done, and India has been doing this at the United Nations. India has been arguing at the FATF countless times, and also successfully India actually listed Pakistan in FATF's grey list that we actually covered in the previous analyst sessions too. Also in this matter, we can see China abnormally not commenting too much on this operation. China only told that this operation is a degrade, and kind of exercising restraint messages to both of the nation. But we have to understand that China is a very close friend of Pakistan. Despite that, China is not playing too much of a big role as of now, in this entire episode. Next, it obviously means that China is kind of avoiding maybe Pakistan, or maybe, Pakistan is isolated diplomatically at the international level because China is simply dealing with the US in its own tariff wars. Also, China wants close cooperation with India because India is right now a very big market for China, and in recent times we have also seen how China is becoming kind of friendly to India, maybe by giving some green signals to Mansarovar Yatra and various other operations. So that is where we have to appreciate this role. Next, we also have seen how regional power equations have changed, that India can act without US and West approval, right? India have had so many economic decisions, so many decisions that independent of the West or say the US camp, India can actually take decisions on Russia-Ukraine crisis and various other issues too. And finally, we have to understand the impact on the regional organizations such as SAARC, BIMSTEC and so on. Now, we know that SAARC has been not been operating over a period of time only due to India and Pakistan issues. Otherwise, this particular regional group was actually a very important one previously. And when we talk about the declining influence of SAARC, we have to talk about the increasing significance of BIMSTEC in the region. Maybe over a period of time, India can actually push its partner to cooperate more on the BIMSTEC platform. Next, we need to look into GS3 topics right now, on the role of external state actors in creating internal security challenges. So some of the observation here is that can be important for your GS3 answers is, firstly, we have to understand the role of state-backed terror groups in Pakistan, right? Any state-backed terror groups means that Pakistan is actually carrying out a proxy war. Pakistan cannot declare a direct war on India. So that is why they have connected an intermediary, that is their terrorist groups. So actually their own General Pervez Musharraf back in 1990s and also in early 2000s have had this doctrine that Pakistan should be bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. And that is why it has promoted so many terrorist organizations to thrive in Pakistan. And that is actually causing a proxy war in India through various terror camps and funding hubs and leadership, and that is why India has been carrying out so many operations in uprooting this menace in Pakistan. Also, Pakistan is internationally infamously known as a deep state, where deep state generally in this context means that the government is not democratic in Pakistan, the military conducted several coups in Pakistan, and at the end of the day, the ISI, which is the intelligence operation or say the agency, in Pakistan who loves to conduct so many say terror attacks against India. So this is a kind of a complex which has grown in Pakistan over a period of time, and their own citizens do not like it over a period of time. Next, also we have to appreciate the use of technology in counter-terrorism, extremely crucial for your answers, where India have had kinetic strikes over a period of time, the military strikes. Also, India has isolated Pakistan on the global stage by carrying a narrative that Pakistan is a terrorist country funding terrorist groups, and also we have seen the same at the FATF too. Next, when we talk about the funding of terrorism, right, here the topics of money laundering and those Hawala networks come into picture, the illegal NGOs in Kashmir, in India, which also carry out various funding related activities to fuel terrorism activities in the country. And finally, India's countermeasures will be, for example, with the use of ED and NIA in the country, and also at the international forum with the cooperation of the FATF. Now, at the end, we have to look into the ethical dimensions too. Now, there is a very important theory known as the just war theory, where war only must be undertaken when we do not have any resort, right? This is the last resort. We have the right intention, right cause, right authority, comparative justice must be delivered, and obviously there must be a probability of the success. Apart from this, we also must be understanding how a war should be fought. That is, it should not be having any discrimination, especially civilians must not be targeted, minimum force must be used, and the damage should be limited, and obviously we have to follow proportionality. That's only people who have done wrong, war must be waged against them. And that is exactly what India has done. India is not going into war with Pakistan. It is only correcting the injustices which happened in the Pahalgam incident, where so many women were actually made widows due to their belonging to some community. So the UN Charter must be respected in this manner, and that is where we have to now come to the issue of state sovereignty versus counter-terrorism. Now, US in the past carried out operations against Osama bin Laden, and Pakistan back then denied that Laden was existent in their country. But US carried out the operation, they found that Laden was in Pakistan. Later we carried out 2611 investigations. Pakistan admitted Qasab's involvement. And over a period of time, we have had so many intel, so many information that terrorism is conducted in Pakistan. They are trained, they are sent into India to carry out attacks. So now, do we need to acknowledge Pakistan's sovereignty? Here, we have to listen to them, or we have to carry our own operations here. So that is the big thing that we have to keep in mind, that terror havens are legitimate targets. We cannot appreciate the fact that we cannot enter Pakistan's border. We have to enter, we have to destroy them, and that is extremely ethical in this case, because those camps, those people are targeting our own citizens, and at the end of the day, they are going against humanity. Next, when we talk about ethics of funding and proxy war, which is also a topic in your paper, we have to understand that in recent times, US aid was diverted to Lashkar-e-Toiba, right? Also, the recent CPEC investment, money that China has been given to Pakistan, there are many reports that this investment, this money is funding the Pakistani army, the money is going to ISI, the money is then going to terrorist camps. So, where is the ethical issue here? Where is the ethics by Pakistan conducted here? Next, when we talk about the funding here, this kind of Hawala networks and NGOs, they carry out their words. And again, at the end of the day, India's moral high ground must be proven at the global stage. At G20, at the UN General Assembly, India have had a policy of zero tolerance for terrorism. So that is how we have to wrap up this issue. And in this particular condition, we try to discuss this in great detail. And now 2018 and 2024 PYQs are there. You let me know the answers in the comments. Also, there is a mains practice question, but before that, you can have a look at this meme, right, where India conducted mock drill yesterday, and also yesterday we conducted the Operation Sindoor, where we have to appreciate the fact of the Indian government operations here. And with this respect, please do attempt this question. And now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, in this editorial, we are going to look into the recent aspects of India-US energy collaboration because of the recent visit by the US Vice President J.D. Vance in the country, where we have had so many discussions on the cooperation on military aspects, technological aspects, but the most important aspects is how we can have a proper secured energy future between the two countries. And here, when we talk about the relevance for this particular editorial article in the Hindu from a syllabus perspective, in prelims we have issues on general environmental aspects. In GS2 we need to know about how various policies and politics of the developed countries such as the US have on India. have on India's interests. And also in GS3, we have to look into the matters of environment conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. So when I talk about the building blocks between India and US energy and their avenues and their future, we have to appreciate the fact that in the recent times, India and the US are deepening their partnership in energy security and technology. And this is specifically with respect to critical minerals and nuclear energy, the main focus of our discussion today. Critical minerals and nuclear energy, we know, will be helping India transition to a net zero future by 2070. We know that the Prime Minister at the Glasgow summit, he promised that India should be fulfilling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals and 5 climatic goals to transition India into a clean and greener country in the future, because we are signatory to the Paris Climate Agreement and we have to take various national determined contributions to reduce the impacts of pollution and obviously the impacts of global warming in the country. And that is why on a global scale we have to cooperate, and that is why we have to frame some national commitments, and that is why we have this net zero target by 2070. Also, it is extremely crucial to understand that India should be bringing up its non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. That means that we have to diversify away from the fossil fuels. Maybe we will be diversifying to solar energy or say wind energy. And obviously when we talk about the non-fossil fuel energy, we also mean the nuclear energy too. And that is why we have to understand why this strategic synergy must be mattering between India and the US. Firstly, we have to talk about energy transition. This fossil fuel energy to non-fossil fuel energy. This transition will be helping India, and here India can actually get technology and materials from the US, because US is a developed country. It is having so many aspects on solar energy, hydro energy and even nuclear energy. So that is why we have to understand the cooperation aspect. Also, the US companies need an access to a large energy market, and what can be a better market than India itself. Also, when we talk about the supply chain security, the US do not want to be dependent on China. India do not want to be dependent on China, because China, we have seen over a period of time, it has boosted its domestic capabilities in solar energy, in so many other renewable aspects, also in nuclear energy and so on. And they do not want cooperation. China do not want cooperation. They only want competition to actually serve their own Chinese national imperatives. And that is why we have seen that it is hostile to countries such as US and like-minded countries like India and so on. So that is why we want to reduce our dependence on China. Also, we want a strategic partnership to deepen the India and US alignment in the Indo-Pacific region. Also, in this matter, we have to keep in mind that is Indo-Pacific region, there are so many countries who would like this particular energy transition too. Take the case of Bangladesh, take the case of various other island nations. So that is where the US comes as a very big kind of a partner in the Indian Ocean and the extended version of Indian Ocean, that is the Indo-Pacific Ocean. And finally, at the end of the day, if India wants to become a leader tomorrow in energy security, right now it has to partner with the leaders of today, that is the US. And here, let me tell you this very bluntly, that countries who will be powerful tomorrow will be the countries who invest in the climate finance, in the green energy today. And that is what India acknowledges this fact too. So firstly, when I actually talk about the first pillar of the cooperation, we have critical minerals and then nuclear energy. So firstly, when I talk about the critical minerals, which is actually the hidden foundation, we have to appreciate firstly the fact that why do they matter at all. Take the case of the recent deal that took place between Ukraine and the US. This was a deal that was actually for the Ukraine's critical minerals. And we know that Ukraine has deposits of 22 out of the 34 minerals identified by the EU as very critical. And my only purpose of showing you these critical minerals is to show you why they matter. Firstly, in this Russia-Ukraine crisis, US is partnering with Ukraine. Why? Because Ukraine has, more than, 20 of the identified critical minerals out of the 34 minerals in the entire world. That means the US is actually very keen on having minerals such as graphite, lithium, titanium, zirconium, beryllium, other rare earths or various other minerals to actually invest these resources, invest these minerals in lubricants or batteries or ceramics, glass, weapons, nuclear fusion energy, aircrafts, sports equipments, aerospace medical implants, and so many other aspects. If I tell you right now that the critical minerals are actually the doorway to the future, I will not be wrong at all. Because if I talk about the critical minerals, China has actually dominated the entire supply chain. And all of these equipments, as you can see, all of the applications of critical minerals, they are used in all of the items right now, right? So that is why they are extremely important, and is particular thing, right? India and US is having a very key collaboration. So firstly, they took a very important step in 2024 by signing an memorandum of understanding between the two countries to diversify the supply chain away from China. Next, the other three guiding principles is actually the cross-sector approach. That means that in this particular minerals or critical minerals, we have to apply this across space, across various other technologies such as artificial intelligence and energy security and so on. So that is why this collaboration is extremely important. Next, also these countries have acknowledged the importance and role of global partnership. That is why India is actually having collaboration with the US. Also, the US has signed this Ukraine deal with itself. Next, it is also a very long-term vision that, for example, say mining the critical minerals or standardizing the various rules and regulations take around 12 to 16 years. But our vision must not only be confined within these 16 years. We have to go beyond to more than 20 plus years to actually develop the industries of aircraft, electronics, semiconductors in our own domestic countries. For example, in the US and in India itself. So that is why we have to have a long-term vision. Next, when I talk about the next frontier, we have to include the nuclear energy too, because India is having their own ambitious goal. That is, we have a target of achieving 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047. Only we have 8 gigawatts today. So you can only imagine how much time we have to multiply that, because as of now, as you can see here, the number of operating nuclear plants is actually very less in the country according to the potential that we have. Also, India needs to transition to net zero by 2070. That means whatever we are polluting, we have to take it back. And that is what the net zero idea is all about. And if we want to achieve it by 2070, 2070 is actually many years from right now, right? It is around 50 years from right now. But in this 50 years, we would require how much? 200 gigawatts of nuclear power to effectively transition into net zero. So that is why we have to start today. So because we have to understand, we have a very limited amount of operating nuclear plants in the country because there are various challenges. The very first is actually the very slow pace of development. If we can see here, we have so many under construction nuclear power plants, also various proposed which have not been yet constructed as of now. And these are spread across the country. So we have to understand that nuclear reactors take 8 years to build. More than 8 years to build, and that is where we have to now speed it up. Next, we also have a funding gap. That means we need around $180 billion by 2047, and we have to appreciate the fact that this money will not be coming from the government in this scale. That is why the private sector must be encouraged, be it the domestic private sector that we have as of now, or be it attracting the foreign direct investment maybe in this particular matter, having proper government consultation and guidelines. Next, we also have the nuclear liability law, which actually deters private players due to various provisions. And in these provisions, which were also covered in the previous analyst sessions, this is not helping the private sector to set up instruments in the country. So that is why this particular editorial and the author is proposing some kind of a solution. So for critical minerals and nuclear energy, individually, the author has given two types of suggestions. Firstly, for critical minerals, we must be having a mineral exchange platform between India and the US to have a real-time trading between the two nations, investment between the two nations, and also having blockchain traceability between the two nations, because we have to include blockchain, and here this will be ensuring that we have proper trust between the two countries when we talk about the mineral sharing between the two countries. Next, we also need a critical minerals consortium which will be helping to co-invest our resources, our money, and also US money globally. For example, we have so many resources, so many sources of lithium and other say critical minerals all around the world. You let me know in the comments which is actually the 3 countries which are the world's largest producer of critical minerals, or even the raw materials for this matter. So here India and the US must be collaborating in a investor friendly way to pool the funds and invest in Africa, South America and Southeast Asia. And at the end, we also must be using the Quad group: India, US, Japan and Australia, because we have to understand that these are the Western countries which we have in this grouping. We also have India, and in this Indo-Pacific region we need cooperation to thrive, and we have to also include the critical minerals as of now. When we talk about the nuclear energy, the author is proposing that we must be having more small modular reactors. Now we can see that a nuclear reactor is having a very big scale and size. But right now, in recent times, we have so many instances where various reactors, nuclear reactors, can be made at a much smaller scale by dismantling the parts and kind of assembling that parts in various parts of the country. So it means that these modular reactors are extremely flexible to use, to set up, and that is why we must be having more of them. Next, we also need some policy reforms with faster approvals and standardized designs for nuclear reactors. For example, take the case of Delhi metro stations. We have standardized Delhi metro stations on the models of South Korea. So based on the various, say, South Korean railway stations or the metro stations, we have the same kind of standards in all metro stations across our NCR. The same model can be applied to nuclear reactors, where we can actually try to have collaborations with the US, with France and other like-minded countries, and have their designs uniformly implemented in the country. Also, we need to amend our liability laws to make it much more friendly to private sector. And at the end of the day, we also have to divert the nuclear energy towards new applications, not only for power generation in the country. We have to use nuclear energy for producing green steel, because steel is a very polluting entire manufacturing process. Right now, presently, we can actually use nuclear energy to produce green steel with no carbon emission at all. Also, we need to use nuclear energy to power our AI data centers, because we know that the development of artificial intelligence and the technology, they actually consume a lot of energy, and that is why we can actually have cheaper energy, at cheaper rates from the nuclear power plants. And that brings me to the end of this topic, and we have a mains practice question for you all. You do practice this, and also you can use some of important crucial data as a part of your answer too. For example, in 2024, as we can see, right, India has added significant amount of investments in its nuclear energy, renewables and also the fossil fuel based power plants. So now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, you know that in the recent times, Yamuna river was in the news because of its extreme amount of pollution. So that is why the Delhi administration is coming with a proposal to clean the river Yamuna. And that is why we have to understand firstly that why Yamuna river pollution is a very big problem. Firstly, when we talk about the biological oxygen demand, right, this is a concept where we have to understand that there are so many microorganisms present in the Yamuna river. There are so many aquatic plants which are present, but due to pollution, these plants and these microorganisms are dying out, and this is kind of proliferating the growth of various other biological say entities which are harmful for the natural microorganisms and the natural plants, and this is creating a condition of high biological oxygen demand. These other foreign biological products, or say the pollutants in the Yamuna river, is decreasing the quality of the water, and here the existing plants and the microorganisms, they are not getting enough oxygen, and this is what is actually leading to this problem, because the safe BOD is actually 3 milligram per liter. But here, when we talk about the Yamuna river, it is reaching up to 45, 55, 51 levels at various stretches across Delhi. That means the BOD is increasing, and increasing BOD is never a good sign for any kind of aquatic body. So here the current problems, firstly, this particular issue is generally due to untreated sewage from various slums, villages around Delhi, and also due to the urban facilities. Next, we also have open defecation and unhygienic conditions in the river. Also, the Delhi's sewage treatment plants, the STPs, cannot handle all the sewage. And here we have to understand that we have more waste generated than treated. And what about the untreated waste? They are going into the river. So that is why we have to understand that we need some kind of a cleaner process, and that is exactly what this project is dealing with. So this is at the cost of around 3,000 crore. The funding will be coming from Amrut 2.0, which is the Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, which is having a total outlay of 2.77 lakh crore. This will be targeting universal coverage of water supply, 100% coverage of sewage household treatment plants, septic plants in 500 Amrut cities, and also will be providing household tap water to all 4,378 statutory towns. And this is why this scheme, this particular project right now, this will be having a 3-month planning period and 18 months of execution. And obviously, we have to understand that it is trying to cover around 416 unauthorized colonies, 115 villages, and this will be benefiting, or say covering, around 35 lakh Delhi residents. So here the main thing here is that the infrastructure will be built around the construction of decentralized sewage treatment plants. That means we already have sewage treatment plants in Delhi. We have a couple of sewage treatment plants. Firstly, we have to increase the number. Then we have to decentralize this by having decentralized sewage treatment plants, so that we can actually treat the waste that is coming firstly in the STP, and then we have to actually understand that we have to use the STPs here. So that means that we are trying to underburden the STPs right now. And finally, this particular project will be executed by the project management consultant, and also a particular unit will be dedicated for this particular matter. So this will be benefiting the Yamuna rejuvenation, because here we will be trying to reduce the direct discharge of untreated waste by having several STPs. Also, urban sanitation issue will be addressed, and this can also later reduce the various vector-borne diseases such as dengue, malaria, which is a kind of an infamous period of time during the monsoons and so on, during which such diseases spread. Also, when we talk about inclusive urbanization, we have to talk about the unorganized and say the unauthorized colonies. We have to organize them under this particular mission, and obviously at the end of the day we are trying to have a decentralized kind of an infrastructure, right? And this can increase the treatment of the wastes. So now we'll be moving on to the next one. Recently, the cabinet has announced more than 60,000 crore worth of scheme for upgrading the ITIs in the country, and also an initiative was, or say decision has been taken to expand the infrastructure of 5 IITs and also academic capacities of IITs in the country. So here, when we talk about the main objective is to increase the investment in the skilling imperatives of the country, because we have to understand that in India we have a huge population, huge demography, and that is why we need high-end engineering research, high-end skilling ecosystem, because there are simply lots of amount of unskilled labor in the country. So we have to also decrease the labor gap, and that is why this entire initiative is actually aligning with the national education policy, which supports skilling initiatives and also including vocational training and increasing the amount of say manpower or resources or funding of the various skilling centers of our country. Next, we also have the Skill India mission, which is an overarching aim of skilling Indians. Next, we also have the important manufacturing mission of Make in India, and finally we have to transform India to a developed country by 2047 or a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And that is why the very first initiative is targeted at the expansion of the IIT. So the various IITs which are targeted here are Tirupati, Palakkad, Bhilai, Jammu and Dharwad. If you can notice here, none of the IITs here are prominent or say the older IITs. So here we are trying to promote more new IITs by having better amount of research and better amount of say capabilities of academics in this particular regard. So here all of the IITs will be upgraded at the cost of around 11,000 crore over the next 4 years till 2029. The main focus will be about the phase B of construction. In the phase A of construction of these IITs, the main say infrastructure has been built, but right now we have to expand the infrastructure to academic blocks, hostels and so on. Also, faculty concerned developments will be taken by creating 130 new professor level posts, by creating more jobs. It will be also entailing the creation of various research parks with reference to the model followed at IIT Madras, right? And here one research park at each of the 5 IITs will be promoted to boost industry academia collaboration, and also the student strength should be increased to around 13,687 students. So this will be a significant aspect of getting admissions into the IITs and also creating good and effective research ecosystem, because as of now we are spending a meager 0.6% of our GDP on research. So we can only try to admire the intensity and intention behind this particular initiative of expanding the IITs. Next, we also need to upgrade the ITIs. Now, ITIs are different from IITs. These are actually the skilling centers, or say the various say centers in the country where anyone can actually go and actually gain a skill such as carpentry, such as automotive machines, or repairing of smartphones, or various other aspects. So it is actually trying to have a convergence of the informal sector into the formal sector. So here in this particular initiative, the center will be contributing 30,000 crore, the states will be contributing 20,000 crore. Also here the private sector is brought into the picture by contributing 10,000 crore. Finally, it is also having an international co-financing mechanism where 50% of the central share will be given by the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. So what are the main targets here? It will be upgrading 1,000 government ITIs. Next, it will be also trying to bring in the industrial needs and development that are needed. Also, 5 national skill center training institutes will be expanded, along with the setting up of 5 national centers of excellence for skilling. And here the main targeted beneficiaries are at the tune of 20 lakh youth who will be trained over the next 5 years. And finally, the governance here will be, for example, the main administration will be done by the government because it will be government owned, but it will be managed by the industry. So it is a very effective model of promoting private public partnership. So these are all details that you need to know for the schemes here. Not too much of conceptual information, but only information that is important for your examination. Now to the next one. Government of India has given a green light to the satellite communication service in the country, and this is extremely important for your general science, and also that you have to know about the various awareness in the fields of information technology. So when I start this topic, I have to start with the very basics of what do you mean by satellite communication, or briefly it is known as SATCOM. Now, satellite communication is actually an array of satellites, or a collection of satellites. Here, these satellites are in the space, are in the orbit around the earth, and they can provide us internet, voice and data services. And here, these services are actually transported via ground stations and the satellite, and then the satellites to the ground stations. That means that we actually, as customers of this service, can have internet, voice or various other services directly from the satellite themselves, right? And this is actually serving as a alternate to the ground-based communication networks such as optical fiber cables, broadband, or say digital subscriber line and so on. So whatever the existing say mechanism that we see of internet connectivity, this is a total alternative of that, and this can give a wider coverage by even covering the remote and the rural areas. And also we have to understand that the latency of the satellite communication can actually be higher than the broadband connections. For example, by latency I generally mean that it is actually actually the time or say the delay in communicating the various say network signals. So we have a little bit of lag maybe in a satellite communication, but maybe with better investments and technology it will be improved over a period of time. Now these are present at the low Earth orbit, and as of now in India we have various important companies. We have Starlink from SpaceX as of now, which have been allowed by the government of India for a very first time. We also have the collaboration of Bharti, that is Airtel, and Eutelsat, and also we have Amazon services. If I can show you the service plans of the SpaceX, right, the Starlink, which is actually a company by the Elon Musk, we have so many services as you can see, right, which can actually give you download speeds up to around 220 Mbps as of now. As you can see, the latency is actually a bit of higher on the higher side than the broadband connection, where we have the latency of only maybe 10 to 15 ms. So that is why we have to understand right now what are the various guidelines and the strategic regulatory context here. Now the government has actually framed various rules and regulations of how to allow the SATCOM to operate in the country, because as of now they were not allowed. Now when they are being allowed right now, they have some conditions. Firstly, we need to promote local manufacturing and indigenization. So the government told that every company who is setting up the SATCOM in the country, they must submit a year-wise plan to locate at least 20% of the ground infrastructure, such as various user terminals, gateways, which are actually hardware components, and they must be sourced within 5 years from India themselves. And these particular things can consist of antenna, ground stations, user terminals, and they must be sourced from India to have local manufacturing. Next, we also have data localization and cyber sovereignty features. That means that government has told strictly that there must not be any offshore routing of the data. That users' data must not be routed via any gateway outside India. All the data must be there within the country. Also, no mirroring or decryption abroad can take place. Whatever data they are kind of generating, they cannot be processed internationally. Next, we also need to have India-based data centers and DNS. So all the kind of network services, all the kind of data centers must be within the Indian territory to not let the data go out of the country. And also the monitoring of the infrastructure must be with reference to various lawful interceptions, and also must be based in the country itself. So in this particular satellite communication, it is very important to understand that we have the provision to intercept with reference to legal means. In the comment section, can you let me know some of the Indian laws which permit interception in the country? Now, on the next one, it is obviously a very important one. Now, this particular guidelines have mandated that this particular network must be using the NAVIC. Now NAVIC is actually our own indigenous satellite system, that is a regional satellite system, where we are having a constellation or collection of satellites, as you can see here, right? These satellites were built at the cost of around 1420 crores, right? And this is covering up to 1500 kilometers beyond our own borders. And here we have this collection of satellites. What the satellites will be doing? These satellites will be providing us GPS capabilities, right, which will be having accuracy up to 20 meters and open to all users, and also giving India a boost in the international arena too in this particular matter. So that is why NAVIC based support must be there, and here all the technologies with reference to this must be having this NAVIC based approach according to our own model. And here this is actually trying to reflect India's strategic autonomy, because we want to reduce our reliance on the GPS, which is an US technology, or GLONASS, which is a Russian technology, or Galileo, which is an EU technology, and we are trying to promote our own technology, that is a NAVIC system. And finally, we have to understand the important decisions and the guidelines on national security and law enforcement, because this particular guidelines are promoting that we must be having special monitoring zones, especially with reference to 50-kilometer radius near international borders, and also towards the coastal exclusive economic zone. Next, also with reference to live location sharing, service providers must be actually giving a kind of a real-time geolocation data with reference to the government whenever the government would demand. Next, with reference to service restriction during hostilities, right? Operators must be able to disable services in specific areas according to government instructions in cases of any emergencies or any conflicts, right? This is also something which we have in our telecom laws too. And at the end of the day, with reference to security clearance, separate clearances are required for data services and voice services with reference to our national security norms. So these are all the important things that we have to keep in mind here. Now I will be showing you some PYQs from 2018 based on the IRNS. You let me know the answer in the comments, and also there is a mains question based on this which is inspiring us to actually acknowledge how this news can have a potential mains question in the future. Now to the next one. Guys, the Delhi government has actually approved a very important project with reference to cloud seeding in the NCR region. And this is generally to reduce pollution in the NCR that is peaking right now, and even right now we are seeing the aspects of summer pollution which is actually seeing a lot of PM 2.5 and PM 10 pollution or concentration in the NCR. So that is why it becomes extremely important from general science perspective as to how artificial rains can be caused, and also from a GS3 perspective on environment as to how pollution can be reduced. So this is actually a process of cloud seeding. Now guys, appreciate the formation of clouds. We know that water evaporates, and the water vapor being lighter, it actually escalates the altitudes, and when it reaches the higher altitudes, due to the presence of various small particles, the water droplets actually try to gather around the particles, and hence when such a large gathering of cloud particles are seen on this particular nuclei or the small particles, we actually have a cloud. And obviously when the cloud becomes heavier, it comes down as rain. Now, can we create this artificially? Is artificial rain possible? Obviously it is possible, because in the recent times and also in the future maybe everything will be possible using technology. So the very first step here is to identify any clouds. For example, if the Delhi government is saying that we have a lot of pollution in Delhi and the pollution solution can only be caused by rains. If there are no natural rains, let us cause artificial rains. So the very first step is identifying the rain-bearing cumulus clouds. Next, we have to choose a seeding method. How we will be trying to transport various particles there? By aircraft, by drones or ground-based generators, right? That can actually release the seeding agents. Now, what are the seeding agents? These are silver iodide, potassium iodide, dry ice, or even salt in some cases, where this will be transported via the aircrafts to these regions where cloud formation can take place, or to these cumulus clouds, and hence this particular particles can be sent. After being sent there, the nucleation process will be taking place, because particles then will be acting as seeds on which the water vapor will be coalescing or collecting, and hence when they will be growing in number, they will be growing in size, it can fall down as rain or snow. Based on this, we have two types of cloud seeding. We have firstly the glaciogenic cloud seeding, where we have this cloud seeding when we have the temperature below 0 degrees Celsius. For that matter, we generally use silver iodide or dry ice, and this is generally to promote more winter clouds or snow in a region. Next, we also have the hygroscopic seeding, such as this one. For example, in tropical regions where we have the temperatures above 0 degrees Celsius, we need to have better rain, and say in rain deficient regions, that is why in tropical regions we use salt particles. So here the Delhi government has actually assigned various funding requirements for the various chemical requirements, the aircraft procurement and so on, and this entire thing will be actually be carried out by the IIT Kanpur. Now, apart from pollution mitigation, we also have these cloud seeding applications in drought mitigation in dry areas, because clouds can be formed, rain can be actually be realized. Next, we also can have an agriculture boost in rain parched regions. Also, that the precipitation of hailstones in the form of hailstorms, they can actually damage the various crops, and this particular cloud seeding can actually loosen the hails, and they can actually fall as water droplets. Next, we also can use it for our water reservoir management, and this can actually help us feed our dams and rivers with waters, and also help us prevent forest fire spread. So this is what brings me to this 2019 PYQ. You please let me know what is the answer in the comments. Now on to the last one. According to the Hindu, 42 people were injured after an elephant went amok at the Thrissur Pooram festival in Kerala. It is extremely important that we appreciate the various festivals of India as a part of prelims examination. Also, as a part of a GS1, we need to understand the various salient forms of Indian art and architecture. So here, mainly we have to understand the Indian culture and the main culture about the Thrissur Pooram festival. Now, this festival takes place in Kerala, which is actually, to be very frankly, recognized by UNESCO as one of the greatest festivals not only in India but in the entire world. So the main thing here is this is an annual Hindu temple festival in Thrissur, Kerala. The main timing is here. This is actually conducted in the Vajiram month, that is between April and May, when generally the star Pooram rises. And here the main temples which are being involved here is actually the Param Ekkavu and Tiruvambadi. And here the signature event is here, that they use temple parade with golden caparisms like this, right? And also we have the percussion shows and the grand firework festival. Next, we also need to understand who founded this festival for the very first time. It has been attributed to Sakthan Thampuram, who was actually the Maharaja of Cochin back in 1790s to 1805. And here, when we talk about the cultural value, it is actually called the mother of all Purams. It is symbolizing the Kerala's cultural identity, syncretism and temple arts. Now, when we talk about the main issue here, it has been found that many people have been injured, mainly when this fireworks festival was going on. And according to this, previously Kerala High Court gave various guidelines as to how to use the elephants in such festivals. Firstly, the High Court set actually time limits that elephants cannot be paraded more than 3 hours at once to reduce the mental and physical stress. Also, they must be given a mandatory 3 days rest between these public events, between any kind of 2 public events. Also, they must be having 8 meters of spacing of elephants between the parades. Also, with reference to the various daytime road parades, they are completely prohibited to reduce the heat stress on the elephants. Also, in 2012, the Kerala state government actually implemented some rules. So the particular Kerala High Court has mandated these rules to be followed, and at the end of the day, High Court also told that the use of elephants in this festival is not of any religious value. So even if you conduct the festival without elephants, that won't be violating religious freedom. So this is why I discussed this article, because in 2002 there was a question on a festival and in which state it was celebrated. If you know, you let me know in the comments, and that is why we have to discuss such articles in great detail. So thank you. At the end, this was a long discussion. For your cooperation and patience in this regard, please do follow the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, all the best of luck, and thank you.